Commander Sarah Lynn sat in the Intergalactic Council chamber on Alaris Prime, flanked by representatives from dozens of species. It was a daunting room, the vastness of it stretching up into darkness, high columns etched with symbols from worlds she couldn't even pronounce. The holographic image of the outpost under attack hovered above the table, a scarred planet, the Council's shield grid flickering under waves of fire from an unknown, heavily armed enemy fleet. Council members exchanged tense glances, but no one spoke. Finally, Council Speaker Jaxtol, a silver-skinned Eldera, raised his hands. "We face an unprecedented threat. Our outpost, containing vital research, is under assault, and initial reports indicate the enemy fleet is numerous and formidable. We have no confirmation yet on their identity, but their intent is clear." Sarah leaned forward. "Earth is ready to deploy its defense forces to protect the outpost," she said firmly. "Our ships are prepared to launch within the hour." Ambassador Kalan Vaz, the Terrasian representative, eyed her with a look she'd come to know well, one of doubt, almost amusement. "Commander Lin," he began, voice heavy with skepticism. "While we appreciate humanity's enthusiasm, I must remind the Council that Earth's fleet is relatively modest. This enemy has advanced weaponry and numbers beyond what we've encountered before. We must prioritize a strategic withdrawal, preserving our forces rather than risking them on a futile defense." Sarah's eyes narrowed. She'd seen this attitude from Kalan too many times. To him and his Dominion colleagues, humanity was the brash newcomer, eager but ultimately out of its league. "Ambassador Kalan," she replied, keeping her voice measured, "we're not eager to throw lives away. But abandoning an outpost without a fight is unacceptable. Humanity is willing to lead the defensive effort, whatever the odds." Kalan raised a brow. "And do you have a contingency plan for a retreat if, when your forces are overwhelmed? Protocol dictates we cannot afford losses beyond what's reasonable." "We don't plan on retreating," Sarah said, cutting off Kalan's reply. "If we go in to hold the line." A murmur rippled through the chamber, and Sarah saw a few council members exchange uneasy glances. Speaker Jaxtol brought the conversation back, his tone careful but pointed. "Commander Lin, while your commitment is commendable, the Council has a responsibility to ensure the security of our collective forces. Humanity would be participating as part of a coordinated effort, under Council protocol. We are not here to invite reckless heroics." "Respectfully, Speaker," Sarah replied, looking around the room, her gaze landing on each of the representatives in turn. "Humanity may be new to the Council, but we understand sacrifice. We've faced overwhelming odds before and fought for our survival without backup or retreat. We're not here to be reckless. We're here to show that sometimes, refusing to give ground is the only option. The outpost isn't just a piece of land, it represents our unity. If we abandon it, we risk much more than a battle. We risk the morale of every species who looks to the Council for protection." There was a pause as her words hung in the air, and Jaxtol nodded thoughtfully. "It seems we have differing perspectives. The Council cannot force your decision, Commander, but your forces would still fall under Council command. You must be willing to work within our established defensive strategies." Sarah glanced over at Kalan, who was watching her intently, his expression a mix of disdain and something else she couldn't place. It was as if he was daring her to fail. She nodded curtly. "Understood, Speaker. But I request a say in the planning process. Humanity will give everything to protect that outpost." After a tense moment, Speaker Jaxtol tapped a button on his console, and the hologram zoomed in on the planetary system surrounding the outpost. The display showed possible defensive formations, tactical models shifting in real time. "Very well. We will deploy a coordinated task force, with human forces as part of the central defensive position. You will receive your orders en route, Commander." Kalan cleared his throat, his voice dripping with skepticism. "A reminder, Commander Lin, in the event that the enemy's assault proves insurmountable, you are expected to follow the Council's retreat protocols. It would be unfortunate if your people held on to any rash intentions of fighting to the last simply for symbolic pride." Sarah clenched her fists, but she held back her initial retort. Instead, she met Kalan's gaze, steady and unflinching. "Thank you for your reminder, Ambassador," she replied, barely keeping the edge out of her voice. "But humanity isn't in this for symbolic pride. We're in this to protect what we believe in, and we're willing to do what it takes." With that, she rose to her feet, signaling the end of her part in the discussion. Jackstoll inclined his head slightly, and she returned the gesture, leaving the chamber with her head high. As she stepped out, she overheard fragments of whispered conversations behind her. "Is it pride or naivety?" a voice muttered. "Neither," someone else replied. "It's defiance. They don't know when to stop." As the heavy doors closed behind her, Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself. They didn't understand, couldn't understand. Humanity's history was defined by moments of holding the line, of standing firm when retreat wasn't an option. Earth didn't have the luxury of stepping back. They hadn't survived by backing down. Outside the chamber, Lieutenant Farah Mendez, her second in command, waited with a mix of anticipation and worry. "How'd it go?" Farah asked, eyes scanning her commander's face. Sarah managed a tight smile. "Typical council response. They'd prefer a retreat over a stand, but we've got a spot in the defensive lineup. Kalan made it clear he doesn't think we'll last." Farah snorted. "Let me guess, he doesn't think we have what it takes." "More or less," Sarah replied. She checked her datapad, reviewing the preliminary deployment orders already coming through. "But it doesn't matter. We'll hold that outpost, one way or another. If the Council wants to doubt us, let them. We'll show them exactly why humanity's here." Farah grinned, her expression fierce. "I like the sound of that." As they walked down the corridor, a thought struck Sarah, a memory of Earth, of old stories passed down of battles won not by strength, but by sheer refusal to give up. Humanity's gift, its stubborn resilience, was often dismissed as a weakness by these alien powers. But Sarah knew, just as her people had always known, that sometimes it wasn't the strongest who survived but the ones who refused to yield. By the time they reached the hangar, Sarah was ready. She glanced at the fleet of Earth's ships docked and waiting, gleaming against the starlit backdrop of Alaris Prime. They might not be the most advanced, but they were crewed by men and women who believed in what they were fighting for. "Let's show them what we're made of," she said quietly, mostly to herself. Farah nodded. "They have no idea." The fleet assembled above the council outpost was an impressive sight. Ships of every shape and design, representing dozens of species, formed a complex web of coordinated defenses. Sarah's ship, Resolute, was nestled near the center of the formation, surrounded by vessels from the Taraxians, Eldara, and other council species. As commander of Earth's contingent, she was both thrilled and wary. The stakes had never been this high. Her team worked in tense silence, checking weapons systems, reinforcing shields, and establishing communications. Lieutenant Farah Mendez was overseeing final preparations at her station, her sharp gaze focused on the tactical map that flickered with the latest reports. "Commander, the Terracien flagship is requesting an update on our readiness," Farah said, glancing over her shoulder. "Let them know we're ready," Sarah replied, keeping her gaze on the vast expanse outside. She could see the Terracien ship hovering nearby, its sleek, silver hull contrasting with the bulky human ships. Kalan was aboard that vessel, no doubt watching them closely, waiting for any sign of weakness. A familiar voice crackled through her calm, sharp and condescending. "Commander Lin, Ambassador Kalan here. I trust Earth's ships will remain in formation and adhere to Council orders during the engagement." "Of course, Ambassador," Sarah replied, masking her irritation. "Earth's forces are fully committed to the mission and will follow Council protocols." Kalan's voice didn't warm. "Good. And remember, we have a strict fallback protocol. If the enemy force is too overwhelming, our first priority is to protect resources and personnel." "We're aware, Ambassador," Sarah replied evenly, choosing her words with care. "Our priority is to hold the outpost and ensure its defenses are intact. We'll do everything necessary to accomplish that." Kalan paused, a hint of disdain in his reply. "Very well, Commander." I will be monitoring your forces closely. The comm clicked off, leaving an uneasy silence. Farah turned to Sarah, eyes flashing with the same frustration Sarah felt. He's already preparing to run, Farah muttered. Let him, Sarah said, shrugging. Earth's not going anywhere. We'll prove our worth, with or without Kalan's approval. Outside, the enemy fleet was closing in, their dark, angular ships cutting through space like spears. Sarah's tactical screen lit up as the scanners registered dozens of vessels, heavily armed, well-coordinated, and relentless. The first wave was moments away. Prepare for incoming, Sarah called to her crew. Maintain shields at full strength, target the lead vessels, and wait for my signal to fire. The tension in the air was almost tangible, her crew a mix of seasoned officers and fresh recruits, all of whom had trained tirelessly for this moment. As she scanned the tactical display, she saw the Terrasian fleet already shifting into a defensive position. It was a classic Terrasian strategy, holding ground only until the odds turned, ready to retreat at a moment's notice. She leaned forward, fingers tightening on her armrest. Farah, relay to all ships, Earth's contingent is holding. No retreat unless absolutely necessary. We'll protect this outpost and give these people a reason to believe. Farah nodded, and moments later, the message was relayed to Earth's fleet. She saw her crew visibly relax, determination replacing any flicker of doubt. It was a look she'd seen before, a silent promise that they'd fight with everything they had. The first enemy barrage struck hard, shaking the Resolute with brutal intensity. Consoles flickered as her crew scrambled to stabilize the systems. Shields holding, Commander, Farah reported, her voice steady. Damage to the hull is minimal. Return fire, Sarah ordered. The Resolute unleashed a volley, its missiles streaking toward the enemy's front lines. The rest of Earth's fleet followed suit, peppering the approaching ships with coordinated blasts. Alien vessels all around them joined in, forming a defensive wall of concentrated fire. Explosions dotted the dark expanse as enemy ships disintegrated under the onslaught, but they kept coming. They seemed endless, and for every ship destroyed, 2 more filled the gap. Enemy reinforcements closing in from Sector 4, called Ensign Malik from the radar console. At least a dozen, heavily armed. Redirect the forward batteries, Sarah replied, her voice calm but clipped. Keep them at bay. As the battle raged, Sarah noticed a subtle but steady shift. The Terrasian fleet was edging backward, their ships slowly drifting toward the fallback point. She gritted her teeth. Kalan wasn't even waiting for orders to retreat. His forces were preserving themselves, following the Council's protocol to the letter, regardless of the consequences. Farah noticed it too. They're backing off, leaving a gap in the line, she said, shaking her head. They're going to abandon us if we don't fall back. Not on my watch, Sarah muttered. She activated the intercom to address her entire fleet. This is Commander Lin. The Taraxians may fall back, but Earth's ships are staying right here. We hold the line, we protect the outposts, and we show them what it means to fight. She was answered by a chorus of affirmations from her crew and the captains of Earth's fleet. The intensity of their conviction was unmistakable, and it was enough to renew her resolve. They were here to prove themselves, and nothing, not even the Council's timidity, would stop them. Explosions flared across the front lines as enemy ships intensified their assault, the hum of energy weapons pulsing through the hull. The Council's fleet was beginning to fracture, with some ships retreating while others struggled to hold their positions. But Earth's ships remained steadfast, forming a protective arc around the outposts, filling the gaps left by the retreating forces. Commander, shields are at 60%, Farah reported, glancing at the readouts with a frown. We can't take much more of this. Redistribute power from non-essential systems to the shields, Sarah replied. And keep our defenses focused on the outpost perimeter. We're here to hold. The enemy ships closed in, each wave more intense than the last. Sarah saw the strain on her crew's faces, the exhaustion in their movements. Yet they kept going, pushing forward, fighting with everything they had. Commander Lin, Kalan's voice suddenly crackled over the comm again. I urge you to reconsider your position. Our ships are retreating to preserve resources. If you don't follow, your forces will be isolated and destroyed." Sarah's jaw clenched, but she kept her tone even. "Ambassador Kalon, we're holding our position. Earth's forces are committed to protecting this outpost. If you wish to retreat, feel free." A silence followed, broken only by the hum of the ship and the steady pulse of enemy fire. Then, Kalon's voice returned, sharper this time. "You do not have the authority to endanger Council assets with this reckless defiance. Consider this your final warning, Commander." Sarah leaned forward, her voice firm. "Understood, Ambassador. Earth's forces are acting within the bounds of our mission to defend this outpost. We'll hold the line with or without Council approval." The comm clicked off, and Sarah exhaled slowly, steeling herself. She glanced at Farah, who nodded, sharing a silent understanding. They both knew what was at stake, and they knew what they'd signed up for. The battle continued to rage, but the outpost stood firm, bolstered by humanity's defiance. It wasn't about Council orders or protocols anymore. It was about proving, once and for all, that humanity was here to stay. The barrage continued, pounding the Resolute and its fleet relentlessly. Sarah watched the tactical display, her heart racing as more enemy ships closed in. Her team was straining under the endless waves, but she could see the fearlessness in her crew's eyes. They'd held the line against impossible odds, but the intensity of the assault was reaching a breaking point. "Commander, shields are down to 20%, Farah called out, her voice edged with urgency. "If they push much harder, we're not going to last." "Understood," Sarah replied, gripping the arm of her chair. "But we hold as long as we can. Reinforce weapons, let's focus on hitting their command ships. If we can disrupt their coordination, it might buy us time." Farah nodded, and the crew adjusted their targeting systems, shifting fire toward the larger enemy vessels coordinating the attack. Missiles tore through space, explosions blossoming as they struck the enemy's flagships. For a brief moment, the assault slowed, giving her fleet a few precious seconds to regroup. The comms suddenly sparked to life, and a familiar voice filled the bridge. "Commander Lin, this is Ambassador Kalon," he said, a note of frustration mingling with something that almost sounded like grudging respect. "We've monitored your progress. Your forces are performing admirably. The Council has agreed to send reinforcements." Sarah exhaled in relief but kept her tone steady. "Understood, Ambassador. We'll continue holding the outpost perimeter until backup arrives." "Good. But be warned, reinforcements are still some distance away. It will take time," Kalon replied, the caution returning to his voice. "We're aware, Ambassador. We'll keep fighting," she replied, her words as much a promise to herself as to him. As the comm cut out, Farah looked over, a smirk crossing her face. "Guess they finally took us seriously." "It's about time," Sarah replied, her mouth curving into a faint smile. She could feel the energy shift on the bridge. The knowledge that help was on the way fueled a new surge of determination. The next wave of enemy ships bore down, but Earth's fleet met them with renewed fire. Their weapons locked onto vulnerable points, scoring direct hits on the lead ships. Explosions rippled across the enemy formation, creating small pockets in their lines. The outpost's defenses, though battered, were holding, boosted by humanity's relentless firepower. Suddenly, Ensign Malik's voice cut through the noise. "Commander, I'm picking up strange signals from the enemy fleet. It's like they're coordinating from a central control point. But there's interference. I can't pinpoint the exact location." Sarah's mind raced. A central control point? If they could disrupt it, they might break the coordination entirely. "Can you refine the signal, get us closer to locating it?" "Working on it, Commander," Malik replied, fingers flying over his console. "There's heavy interference, but I think I can isolate it." The bridge fell silent as the crew focused, waiting for Malik's update. Seconds passed, then finally he spoke, his voice triumphant. "Got it! The command ship is 2 sectors ahead, moving with the main fleet. It's shielded heavily, but if we can take it down, the others might falter." Sarah's mind locked onto the opportunity. Farah, pass the coordinates to the rest of the fleet. All units converge on that command ship. We'll take it down together. The order was relayed, and Earth's fleet began shifting positions, concentrating fire on the command ship identified by Malik. The enemy seemed to sense the threat, redirecting their own forces to shield their leader, but humanity's forces pressed forward, undeterred. As they closed in, the Resolute shook violently under another barrage. Alarms blared as power fluctuations rippled across the bridge, but Sarah forced herself to remain calm. Hold steady, everyone. Focus all fire on that target. Missiles and energy blasts converged on the command ship, its shields flickering as the combined firepower hammered down. Bit by bit, cracks began to appear along its hull. Sarah's fleet pushed harder, Earth's ships taking hit after hit but refusing to back down. Finally, a massive explosion ripped through the enemy's command ship, the debris scattering in all directions. Immediately, the enemy formation shifted, breaking apart as smaller ships lost their coordination, moving erratically without centralized control. Farah exhaled, her eyes shining with fierce satisfaction. We did it, Commander. Their formation's breaking up. They're vulnerable now. Perfect. Relay to all ships, press the advantage. Target each vessel, and take them down systematically, Sarah ordered, her voice steady but laced with exhilaration. This was the break they needed. Earth's fleet surged forward, tearing through the enemy ranks. Without their command structure, the enemy's tactics faltered, their ships scattering in confusion. One by one, they fell to Earth's coordinated fire, their once imposing fleet dissolving into a desperate retreat. As the last enemy vessel exploded in a brilliant flash, a wave of relief washed over the bridge. The silence that followed was filled with an unspoken triumph, a sense of vindication that words couldn't quite capture. Farah turned to Sarah, her voice barely containing her elation. We held the line, Commander. Against everything they threw at us, we actually did it. Sarah nodded, her own heart pounding with pride. And we showed them who we are, she replied softly. Earth came here to prove a point, and I think we did. As she glanced around at her crew, she saw the exhaustion in their faces, but also something more, an unbreakable bond forged in the fires of battle. They had fought as one, against impossible odds, and come out victorious. The comms crackled again, and this time it was Kalan's voice, but with an unfamiliar tone. Commander Lin, on behalf of the Council, I commend Earth's forces for their bravery and resilience. Your performance today has exceeded expectations. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Thank you, Ambassador. It was a team effort, but I think Earth's forces proved their mettle. Yes, Kalan replied, his words reluctant but genuine. Consider this a lesson well learned. The Council now understands the value of Earth's commitment, and its strength. The channel closed, and Farah gave Sarah a look of satisfaction. I never thought I'd hear him say that. Neither did I, Sarah replied with a grin. But now he knows. And so does the entire Council. The crew let out a quiet cheer, the tension and adrenaline easing as the realization of their victory sank in. Sarah allowed herself a rare moment of reflection, her gaze drifting to the stars beyond the viewports. They'd held their ground not because it was protocol, or because the Council demanded it. They'd done it because that's what humanity did. Earth didn't have a surrender protocol in its DNA. Turning back to her crew, Sarah felt a renewed sense of purpose. This victory was more than just a battle won, it was the beginning of something larger. Earth had proven its strength, and with it, had secured a place among the stars, a place no one would doubt again. The victory over the Dominion fleet had spread through the Council outpost, and beyond. Word of Earth's defiance and resilience reached alien species across the galaxy, many of whom had faced the Dominion's oppression for centuries. The Council chamber buzzed with voices, members exchanging whispers and looks of newfound respect for the humans standing at the center of it all. Sarah Lynn watched from her position near the center of the chamber, flanked by her officers, her gaze steady. Kalan, as always, was composed, but there was a shift in his bearing, an acknowledgement of Earth's unexpected strength. He gestured for silence, his voice filling the chamber. Today, the Council has witnessed what humanity brings to the galaxy, Kalon said, nodding slightly in Sarah's direction. Earth's forces held the line against a seemingly unbeatable foe, and in doing so, they reminded us all of what we stand to lose should the Dominion remain unchecked. Sarah inclined her head, accepting the compliment without pride or triumph. Thank you, Ambassador. Humanity believes in standing up for those who can't. But the Dominion remains a threat, and I'm certain they're regrouping even now. Kalon's expression turned grave. Indeed, Commander. Our intelligence reports suggest they're planning an aggressive push to reassert dominance, especially now that Earth has openly challenged them. Which is why. He paused, a weight to his words. The Council has agreed to discuss a formal alliance with Earth's forces. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Many of the Council species had resisted humanity's presence, seeing them as newcomers, brash and impulsive. But Earth's actions had forced a reconsideration. Sarah kept her expression neutral, though inwardly she felt a surge of vindication. This was what they'd fought for, an opportunity to be seen as allies equals. Kalon continued. The Council is offering Earth access to advanced resources, including weaponry and intelligence networks. In return, we ask that Earth's forces stand with us in a united coalition against the Dominion. Sarah looked to her team, feeling the shared determination radiating from them. This alliance wasn't just about defense. It was a chance to level the playing field, to turn their defensive victories into a strategic offensive. She nodded, meeting Kalon's gaze directly. Earth accepts. We're ready to stand together, to fight for a galaxy free of Dominion control. As she spoke, a new figure stepped forward, a representative of the Zalon, a species with silver skin and eyes that gleamed like liquid metal. The Zalon were known for their cautious diplomacy and their powerful stealth technology, tools that had kept them hidden from the Dominion's gaze for centuries. We of Zalon have watched humanity. The representative began, her voice melodic but firm. Your people fight not out of desperation, but with purpose, with conviction. We have our reservations, but we believe there is a path forward, together. Zalon will support Earth's forces, providing access to our stealth systems. The chamber was silent as Sarah took in the implications. The Zalon technology was legendary. It would allow her fleet to maneuver undetected, gathering intelligence and striking from unexpected angles. She inclined her head in gratitude. Thank you, Representative. We'll make good use of that gift. Another figure rose, this one a towering, armored Terrasian warlord. His voice was a deep rumble. Earth's resilience has earned our respect. Terraxians are ready to share our plasma weaponry, direct, powerful, like your people. May it help you in the fights ahead. Sarah nodded to him, gratitude flashing in her eyes. The Terrasian plasma weaponry was the most lethal in the galaxy, capable of punching through even the Dominion's toughest shields. Combined with Zalon stealth, Earth would be able to strike strategically and decisively, crippling Dominion forces before they even knew what hit them. One by one, more Council members offered resources, each adding a piece to a growing coalition. It was a rare sight, the galaxy's most advanced and diverse species pooling their strength, unified by humanity's example. The Dominion's tyranny had fractured many civilizations, but Earth's defiance had sparked something new, hope. As the session ended, Sarah met with her officers in the Council's war room, poring over the intelligence and resources they'd gained. The Dominion had several key supply planets, rich with resources that fueled their war machine. The Coalition's new objective would be to cripple those supply lines, weakening the Dominion before launching a full assault. Lieutenant Farah Mendez studied the star charts on the display, her sharp gaze tracking the highlighted routes. Their closest resource planet is in the Balar system. If we can hit it hard enough, it'll cripple their supply chain. Captain Reyes, a veteran strategist, leaned in. And it's lightly defended, according to the Zalon data. We could make a quick, brutal strike, then pull out before they even realize we were there. Sarah nodded, feeling the plan take shape. Good. We'll use Zalon cloaking to approach undetected, hit them fast with the Terrasian plasma cannons, and disrupt every resource depot we can find. If we succeed, it'll send a message to every Dominion outpost. We're no longer just defending. We're coming for them. Her officers exchanged determined looks, anticipation sparking in their expressions. They had always been on the defensive, but this operation was different. Earth wasn't hiding anymore. Prepare the fleet, Sarah ordered. Make sure every captain understands the mission. This is our first strike, but it's just the beginning. Let's show them what Earth can do. As they set to work, Kalon approached, his face unreadable. Commander Lin, you understand that this operation will shift the balance. The Dominion will know you're coming, and they'll respond aggressively. Sarah held his gaze. We're prepared. Earth didn't come this far to back down now. Kalon studied her, a flicker of something like respect in his eyes. Then perhaps Earth has more in common with the Council than I initially thought. May your people's fire be what finally frees the galaxy. They shook hands, a simple gesture, but one that carried weight. With the Council's backing, Earth was no longer a lone voice in the dark. They were part of a united front, prepared to stand against a common foe. Hours later, the fleet set out, the ships of Earth flanked by Xeylon-cloaked vessels, Terrasian warships, and others from across the Council's factions. They approached the Balar system under a blanket of stealth, slipping through Dominion patrols undetected. When the fleet reached orbit around the resource planet, Sarah felt a steely calm settle over her. All ships engage on my mark. Focus on resource depots and fuel stores. Let's make it count. With a single command, the Coalition fleet unleashed its full might. Plasma bolts rained down, obliterating fuel reserves and storage facilities. The Dominion garrison scrambled, unprepared for the assault, as explosions shook the surface, fires spreading through their installations. Within minutes, the planet's infrastructure lay in ruins, a clear, defiant message from the Alliance. The Coalition retreated as quickly as they had arrived, leaving the Dominion forces reeling, scrambling to understand what had hit them. Back aboard the Resolute, Sarah watched the starfield as they jumped to safety, satisfaction mingling with a cautious optimism. This strike was just the beginning, a warning to the Dominion that their reign was no longer unchallenged. Earth had proven itself, and now the galaxy was watching. Farah turned to her, a fierce light in her eyes. They're going to feel this one, Commander. Sarah smiled, her gaze hard. Let them. It's about time they realized humanity doesn't back down. As Earth's coalition returned from the Balar strike, the Dominion's reaction was immediate and ruthless. Surveillance reports showed that the Dominion had amassed its largest remaining fleet and was hurtling toward Earth, determined to crush the humans once and for all. On the Resolute's bridge, Commander Sarah Lynn and her officers gathered around a live feed of the incoming fleet, each of them silent, focused, and unshaken. They're throwing everything at us, Captain Reyes said grimly, studying the data. They want to make an example out of Earth. We're prepared for this, Sarah replied firmly. The Council's reinforcements are in position, and with the technology we've gained from our new allies, we'll meet them head-on. Ambassador Kalon's voice came through the comms. Commander Lin, this battle will be decisive. The Dominion won't stop until one side is utterly broken. Then we'll make sure it's theirs, Sarah said, her voice unwavering. Earth's fleet is ready, Ambassador. We'll stand together. In the minutes that followed, orders echoed through the ship as every vessel in the coalition prepared for battle. Earth's forces were lined up in the first wave, with Xeylon-cloaked ships ready to flank the enemy, Terrasian plasma cannons primed, and other Council species standing by in formation. This was no longer just Earth's fight, it was the galaxy's. As the Dominion fleet emerged from hyperspace, filling the void with warships that blotted out the stars, a heavy silence settled over the bridge. The enemy's presence was overwhelming, their vessels dark and sleek, designed to intimidate as much as to destroy. Commander, Farah said, tension threading her voice. They're powering weapons and moving into an attack formation. Sarah met her gaze. Then we won't wait for them to bring the fight to us. Open comms to the fleet. The comms line buzzed open, her voice carrying across every ship. To all units, This is Commander Lin. Earth stands with each of you, ready to fight. We've pushed the Dominion back once, and today, we end this together. Every weapon we've gained, every tactic we've trained for, we use it now. Let's make this one count. The Coalition fleet moved in unison, advancing toward the Dominion with grim resolve. The first exchange was fierce and immediate. Blasts of plasma, energy bolts, and missiles turned the void into a chaotic storm. Earth's ships led the charge, hammering through the Dominion's front line with coordinated fire. Xeylon's ships flanked the enemy, using their cloaking technology to strike from unexpected angles, while Terrasian plasma bolts ripped through enemy shields, leaving hulks of Dominion ships adrift. The Resolute dodged incoming fire, the shields flaring but holding as Sarah directed their attack, targeting weak points along the Dominion's formation. It was a brutal, unrelenting assault, and her crew worked with precision, a testament to their training and unity. Amid the battle, Lieutenant Farah's voice cut through. Commander, sensors are picking up a surge in energy from their flagship. It's massive, some kind of focused weapon. Sarah's mind raced. The Dominion's flagship, a towering dreadnought, sat at the center of the fleet, its massive guns lining up on the Resolute. If it fired, it could destroy their ship in seconds. Get us out of their line of fire, now! Sarah commanded. The Resolute veered hard, engines flaring as they shifted position. The Dominion flagship's weapon discharged, a searing beam tearing through space where they'd just been. The crew exhaled in relief, but the flagship was already powering up for a second shot, targeting other Coalition ships. Farah, relay the flagship's targeting data to the Xeylon. If they can disable it. Before she could finish, a Xeylon-cloaked ship materialized next to the dreadnought, unloading a full barrage into its weapons array. Explosions burst across the Dominion flagship as its guns went dark, but the retaliatory fire was swift, and the Xeylon ship disintegrated in a flash, a final act of sacrifice. Farah's voice was tight with urgency. Flagship weapons are down, but there's still a formidable force. We need to take it out, Commander. Agreed. Farah, Reyes, coordinate with the fleet. We're focusing fire on their flagship. If we take it down, the rest of the fleet will falter. Orders flew across the bridge, and Earth's ships moved in, concentrating their attack on the Dominion dreadnought. Plasma fire and missiles pounded its shields, but the flagship fought back fiercely, its remaining weapons lashing out. The Coalition was taking heavy losses, ships vaporized or crippled in the relentless assault. Kalen's voice came through the comms, urging them forward. Hold the line, Coalition forces. Earth and the Council have already achieved what no one else has. Today, we finish this. Sarah's heart pounded as the Resolute bore down on the flagship. Every gun, every missile launcher, was trained on the Dominion dreadnought, firing with ruthless precision. The dreadnought's shields flickered, cracked, and finally collapsed, leaving its hull exposed. Concentrate all fire on their engines, Sarah ordered. We're ending this now. Earth's ships unleashed their full might, tearing into the dreadnought's exposed engines. The massive ship shuddered, explosions tearing through its hull, until a final blast erupted from within. The dreadnought split apart, fragments scattering as the Dominion's most powerful ship was obliterated. A stunned silence filled the bridge as the remaining Dominion ships hesitated, their formation breaking. One by one, they began to retreat, turning and fleeing from the Coalition forces, their morale shattered with the loss of their leader. Farah let out a triumphant shout. They're retreating, Commander! We did it, they're falling back! Sarah exhaled, feeling the weight of relief mixed with the ache of their losses. All units hold position. Let them go. The comms crackled with cheers from across the fleet, each ship reveling in the moment of victory. For the first time in generations, the Dominion's grip had been broken. Kalen's voice returned, solemn but filled with respect. Commander Lin, on behalf of the Council, I commend Earth's courage and strength. You led us to victory. Today marks a new chapter for the galaxy. Sarah nodded, her voice steady. Thank you, Ambassador. This victory belongs to all of us. The celebrations were quiet, muted by the loss of so many lives, but the coalition knew they had done something monumental. Sarah took a final look around her bridge, seeing the pride and weariness in her crew's faces, knowing each of them had given their all. As they prepared to return to Earth, Sarah felt a calm satisfaction settle over her. They had proven Earth's resilience, shown the galaxy that they would never surrender. And now, they had allies, true allies, standing by their side. When the fleet arrived home, the welcome was overwhelming. Earth's people celebrated not just their survival, but their place among the stars, forged in the fire of unity and sacrifice. In the days that followed, Sarah met with Kaelon and the Council leaders to discuss the future of the Alliance. Together, they would rebuild, strengthening bonds with former Dominion-controlled worlds, fostering peace, and standing as a beacon of resistance. As she left the Council chamber, Sarah felt a sense of purpose, a new resolve. Earth's journey among the stars was just beginning. And she knew, without a doubt, that they would face whatever came next with courage and unity. Earth didn't need a surrender protocol. They were the symbol of freedom and strength the galaxy had longed for, and with this new alliance, they were ready to defend it.